Hi, and welcome back. Our next fireside chat is with ICL, and we're very fortunate today to have Raviv Zoller with us. He's the firm's president and CEO. But before we get started, I need to do two housekeeping items. The first is to remind you that for important disclosures, please see the Morgan Stanley Research Disclosure website at www.morganstanley.com/research disclosures. And if you have any questions, please reach out to your Morgan Stanley sales representative. The second piece would be that we are equipped to take your questions. And you'll see the question box in the web browser that you're watching me on right now. And we would like you to put those questions in that box and submit them the minute you have them so that we get them right away. So there's no delay in transfer, and also so that we have the opportunity to feather them into the overall chat as practicable. We find that often enriches the chat versus waiting to ask them at the end. And with that, we can get started. So just Raviv, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Vincent. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Well, look, I thought what kind of an interesting place to start our discussion today would be in your innovative ag portfolio. You've done two recent acquisitions, Fertile Aqua and Compass Minerals. So maybe you could talk a little bit to us about sort of the strategic rationale of those acquisitions, and then how the integration is going so far, what you're achieving, what you're learning, and so forth.
Sure. First of all, it's a $15 billion addressable market, and it's growing above 5% a year. The rationale is that in this business, the two geographies that are seeing the highest growth are in Brazil and in China. In fact, Brazil and China are seeing 70% of global growth. And other than India, that's growing at just as high a pace, those are the highest growing geographies. In China, M&A strategy is less appropriate for us. We have a successful joint venture around phosphate in China, and we're leveraging that in order to build an organic organization in China. So our plan is based on organic growth in China. In Brazil, it became evident to us that given our lack of size, it would be the right thing to enter the market in a meaningful way through an acquisition. And we were fortunate enough to acquire two very, very good companies, one of them being the leader in the plant nutrition business in Brazil. So that happened during COVID-19 when there wasn't a lot of competition on the acquisition side, and we were very fortunate. In terms of how that's working so far, Fertile Aqua has been consolidated into ICL results since the beginning of this year, and they're doing very, very well. In fact, their strongest season is the fourth quarter, so they're seeing very good results during the past couple of months. And the former Compass Minerals, now we call it ADS, which is ICL America do Sul. They are doing phenomenal this year. We're seeing 50% growth versus last year on revenue, and the same on EBITDA. And the third quarter was the first quarter of consolidation into ICL results, and we're very, very pleased with the performance. Performance is looking very good in the fourth quarter as well. We love the management team. We think they're doing a fabulous job. And we see them as the basis of our future management team in Brazil, where we intend to keep on growing both organically and non-organically.
Okay, yeah, no, that does. And so maybe to build on that, if we look out, 3, 5, 10 years from now, how would you like the portfolio and the overall offering to evolve, and which pieces of it are you feel well equipped to do organically versus where it might be an accelerant to go inorganic?
Okay, so in terms of geographies, I already mentioned we were very much biased on the Northern Hemisphere side, and we were lacking revenues in the Southern Hemisphere, namely in Brazil, which is such an important market. So geographically, we want to grow organically and non-organically in Brazil, organically in China. And we could also be looking at M&A in other territories, namely in Europe and the US. In Europe, we're already pretty significant, and we want to grow our portfolio also from the product offering side. Product offering, we're very much focused on biostimulants and organic fertilizers, where we have other unique offerings in Europe. And in the US, we're always looking to the US, and we could be opportunistic. It's not our main target, but we can be opportunistic in the US. And our ultimate goal is to be leaders in global specialty fertilizers with focus on sustainability, biostimulants, organic, and of course, in the coming years, there'll be significant focus on carbon treatment, which I think the whole industry will be going through.
Okay. And is there any sort of particular areas of focus within production or distribution or retail or just other parts of the chain that you want to reinforce?
Okay, so in terms of production, now that we have significant production capacity, both in Brazil and in China, we're going to be adding some production capacity in India, where the market for specialty fertilizers is still small, or relatively small, but growing very, very quickly. So we intend to add production capacity in India. In terms of distribution, the beauty of the ex-Compass Mineral business is that 50% of their sales are direct to customers, which means that we skip the whole distribution chain and we have access, proximity to the ultimate customer, and that we feel is a very, very unique advantage. So in terms of distribution, this is the way we're going in Brazil to get as close as possible to the customer. In Europe, we already have a very strong distribution system, both for specialties and for commodities. We consolidated our distribution systems of commodities and specialties in order to strengthen our positioning in terms of our distribution chain with partners. And in China, we're building our distribution as we are in India. So we're building those distribution systems organically.
Okay, great. Maybe if we transition to industrial products, maybe just to set the table, you could talk to us a little bit about some of the strategic changes you've made to ICL's bromine business in terms of, what your strategy is, what it isn't, how you've seen the competitive landscape, and particularly the Chinese, production and so forth evolve, and how you've adjusted for that.
Sure. So a couple of years back, we sort of looked at the market and tried to figure out how we're going to get to build double-digit growth in a market that was barely growing. And we identified a significant opportunity coming out of China. And this is because the bromine resource is depleting in China. And at the same time, there's growing government scrutiny over bromine as hazardous material and pollution in general. And the producers in China have been suffering, and we thought that we'll continue to suffer. And the idea was that we have a tremendous value proposition for some of our Chinese customers that were buying elemental bromine from us or from local producers, and were producing the compounds themselves. And the value proposition was, instead of being dependent on bromine, which is getting scarce and more expensive, and producing yourselves and being exposed to government scrutiny, why don't you produce at our facilities? And then you have guaranteed bromine capacity. You have hopefully guaranteed long-term prices if you strike contracts with us for the long term. And at first, it was very difficult to convince the first customer and then the second customer to take on such an approach of giving up their own production or most of their own production and transferring it over to us. But it worked so well that many followed suit. And effectively what that did is it increased our target market, and it increased also our market share. And ever since, we've been running after capacity in order to serve the new long-term contracts that we have. We had a disruption from COVID-19, And as COVID-19 hit the world, the first thing that happened was everything sort of halted. So people stopped buying cars, stopped buying televisions, stopped buying new PCs. But then after about 3 months, things went back to normal. And actually, they didn't go back to the state before COVID-19, but rather through some kind of inflection point where when people stopped using public transportation and bought new cars, specifically electric cars that have the need for more electronic components, then the demand for electronic circuit boards, for chips, the components that need flame retardants suddenly went through the roof. And currently there's a significant shortage of ECBs and of chips. And we see that continuing through the next couple of years. Unfortunately, we can't build capacity fast enough in order to meet all the demand of our customers, but the demand has grown significantly. The inflection point in electric vehicles is meaningful. And that means that for the next few years, at least for the next 3 years, we will be building capacity to try to catch up with demand. Unfortunately, we didn't foresee such a development, because otherwise we would have been ready when customers knocked on our door, and customers did knock on our door, not just because of what happened in the market, but also because of some issues that the competition had last year and this year, sorry. So all in all, bromine quantity sales are growing now at double digit in terms of the demand that we're facing. Some of the spot price increases have not been realized in our business because most of our contracts are annual contracts or long-term contracts that get updated annually on the price. So looking forward, we're looking at increasing capacity and meeting some of the new demand that's out there. And the dynamics are looking much better than we expected when we set out on our strategic plan. The end result is that we will hit the 2025 targets that we presented to our investors a year ago. We will be hitting those targets in 2022.
Can you maybe talk a little bit about, from a capacity perspective, what are the bottlenecks for you in terms of increasing your capacity? You obviously have a program in place, but at what point would you look to get more aggressive with capacity, and how long does it take, and what's the capital intensity of it?
Okay, so first of all, in terms of constraints, we have to build additional lines for compounds, and we have to build additional elemental bromine capacity. For elemental bromine, the thing that we need is additional chlorine. So we are building additional chlorine capacity, and at the same time, we're adding additional lines of compounds. The next line that's going to be added will come into production in July of next year. And then there are additional capacity increases over the next 3 years that are being planned as we speak. And all in all, we're talking about quite significant increase in capacity. We haven't made that public yet, and some of the investments haven't even been finalized internally. So the only thing I can say is that we're entering a new capacity increase plan, which is above and beyond our original plan for 2025. And we have everything we need in place in order to add that capacity. The only thing that we can control is the time that it takes to add that capacity. So the next edition, which is on the way, will come in July. The next edition will come in at the end of next year. And there will be further additions that are now being designed as we speak. And of course, we will update on the specific plans at a later date.
Okay. And then you talked about sort of the contract nature of the business. What is your strategy to have a certain high percentage on long-term contracts, and then to have a subset that's maybe more spot oriented, just so that you're a little bit towards the market, but you get to sort of smooth out the cycle, if you will?
Uh, the dynamics in the market are such that right now most of our business is contracted. Currently, only about 10%, actually even less than 10% of our sales is elemental bromine, and all the rest is compound business, and the compound business is almost all contracted. So we're not exposed to the spot price, but that goes both ways. So this year we didn't enjoy part of the increase in the spot price, but of course next year, as the contracts are being updated, then next year some of that will flow into the contracts.
Okay. And that's just a normal negotiation at the end of the year, or is it indexed, or how does that work?
It's based on Chinese prices, because we're talking about I'm talking about the Chinese customers right now. So it's based on Chinese prices, spot and specific per contract.
Okay. All right. Very good. Maybe if we switch over to the potash business, obviously it's a very strong market. That's accelerated pricing wise in the last 6 months substantially with the balance of the fertilizer industry and the very tight supply and demand situation in the grain and oilseeds markets. Maybe you could talk about a few things. One, I think you've talked about potential to grow your own capacity about 700,000 tons over the next 5 years. Obviously you were talking about that before we've had sort of this renaissance in prices. So is there anything you can do to either increase that or to speed up the timing of that, bringing that capacity online?
Okay, so 200,000 were already added in our Stone facility in the Dead Sea. Another 200,000 are being added this year in Spain, and we will complete that addition sometime around the end of first quarter of next year. We have an additional 300,000 tons planned in Spain, which will come online by 2024. And other than that, we don't have, other than the 700,000 that I just mentioned, we don't have any additional plans for the next few years. We are very much focused on building our specialties business and basing our future on specialties. And we see the commodities business as potential upside during good times. Most of our product comes from the Dead Sea, where our cost position is extremely good. And so we're very profitable in any market conditions. Of course, these days in commodity markets, we're enjoying exceptional profitability. Our Spanish business is higher up on the cost curve. So the production expansions that we're undergoing are being invested in order to get to the average of the cost curve. We're still a ways from there, and when we get there, then we'll be happy with our existing assets. We're not looking to invest in additional commodity capacity. We're very happy with the resources that we've placed on the commodity business, and we're very much focused on growing our specialty business, where we have more control over the results and the long-term prospects of our business.
Okay, so maybe then to switch gears to polysulfate, I think you just recently ramped to 1 million tons run rate of production in October. Could you talk a little bit about sort of the customer adaptation of the product and how that's progressing?
Okay, so first of all, we're very excited about getting to 1 million tons. We're actually not there yet. October was a 1 million ton month, but we still have to go through a few consecutive months to actually be confident that we're there on the production side. We're close. We're not there yet. In terms of customer acceptance, it's been very, very good. We've grown very nicely over the past 3 years, starting from almost nothing. And in the third quarter, for the first time, we sold more than we produced, which means that we actually grew sales by 90% year over year. despite the fact that prices went up. So we're very happy with the acceptance. We've developed quite a few products using polysulfate. So it's not just one product, it's a set of products. We also received organic certification from leading European and US institutions that are acceptable worldwide. And so polysulfate is the most significant organic fertilizer now selling in the world. And we're very proud of that. We see organic as a cornerstone of our future fertilizer strategy. I mentioned before biostimulants, organics, and microbiology in the future, et cetera. So all in all, polysulfate is going according to plan, and the acceptance and the market acceptance is very, very good. We've gone through hundreds of field trials all over the world, and the results are very good, better than expected.
Okay. And how is that product priced?
The current price for the current pricing in Europe for a ton of polysulfate is about $150 currently. That's up about 50% this year. When we started selling polysulfate, we sold it as a sum of its components. It has 4 nutrients. One is potash, the other is sulfur, magnesium, and calcium. So when we started selling and had to explain the product, people were willing to spend the nutrient value on polysulfate. But as they learned about the product, as we educated the market about the product, we were able to capitalize and gain a premium on the nutrients, and that premium is going up. We haven't met our long-term target for the premium, but given the current progression in sales and acceptance, I think that within the next year to 2 years, we'll be there.
Okay. Maybe switching over to phosphate, you recently highlighted an opportunity to sell into the LFP or the battery end market. And so maybe you could talk about that a little bit and how much of your existing capacity could go towards that versus maybe the potential to add capacity directly for that.
Okay, great. So actually, this was not part of our plan. There's LFP technology has gained acceptance in China, and recently Tesla's also announced that it's going to choose LFP technology as the basis for the future. The opportunity presented itself to us, given that we are a white phosphoric acid producer in China. A year ago, we started producing white phosphoric acid in China, and we, as well as some of our competitors, have been selling to the suppliers of the cathodes for LFP batteries. And during the past year, we found out that a fertilizer that we produce that is based on white phosphoric acid, it's called MAP73, is very productive for LFP battery production. The reason is that using this fertilizer type product, you actually go through one process in production instead of two. Instead of 2 stages of production, you can go through a 1-stage production procedure. And as a result, we're selling about $30 million of product for LFP this year. We don't really have available capacity because in order to do that, we had to forego sales of white phosphoric acid that is intended for the food industry, for food grade quality. But we wanted to capitalize on the opportunity. So what we're doing in order to have the necessary capacity is we're building additional capacity of 60,000 tons in our YPH joint venture, and that'll come online next year. And what is behind that is to grow from run rate of $30 million a year to about $100 million a year at the end of next year. We're also looking to source additional white phosphoric acid in order to be able to supply additional capacity, because our customers require much more than the additional capacity that we're able to build in the next year.
Okay, thank you. And maybe with the time that we have left, you could just talk to us a little bit about capital allocation. Obviously, you should have very strong cash flows, given everything going on that we just discussed. So how will we be intending to allocate those cash flows?
Okay, so first of all, you're right. Given the strength in the specialties business and also the upside in commodity prices, we expect that we'll generate about $500 million of cash more than we expected for 2021 and 2022. And therefore, we are considering one, additional M&A. Two, at the end of the year, we're going to discuss our dividend policy again to see if we want to make changes. And three, we're also putting aside reserves for future discussions with our government regarding future concession rights. So we have the additional capital above and beyond what is necessary to execute our additional capex. I forgot to mention that we're also going to allocate about an additional $200 million in the next 3 years for additional capacity in bromine and in phosphate for the reasons I just mentioned. Additional capacity for compounds in bromine and additional capacity for raw material for LFP batteries. So that's going to happen. Additional M&A is possible, at least if we're able to reach the right terms on the businesses we're looking at. And in terms of capital allocation payments to shareholders, then we will reconsider our dividend at the end of the year. I'm not saying we'll necessarily make a change, because 50% dividend policy has worked very well for us and for our shareholders. We haven't had new strategic discussion regarding share repurchase anytime in recent months, and I don't expect that that's on the table for the coming months as well. That's pretty much it. Additional capacity for growth in the business, growth above and beyond what was expected, perhaps some additional M&A, and additional dividends, a question mark.
Okay, very good. Well, as always, Raviv, pleasure, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Appreciate it.